it couldn't be put off any longer. I have now left Steenwijk and I suppose for this trip bringing it to a close at the Hook of Holland, but got a bit of cycling between now and then. But in truth, I'm quite sad this morning, to be honest, because I've really enjoyed being with Wouter and the 3 dogs, Stockhood, Pasha and Aubrey. They've been incredibly kind to me, and by being able to base myself with Wouter and in Steenwijk, I've had a place to work, a place to springboard off and see places, and it's been great from that perspective. But I think what's more important for me, and on a very personal note, is I feel like I've found a second home, a place where I felt welcomed. The whole town and the people I've met have been incredibly nice. The Velemax people, the local bike shop, who have been incredibly helpful, who supplied the trailer, have made the whole journey doable. So I'm grateful to them and would like to thank them for being so kind and supportive. But really, it's all about Wouter, really. He's been really great. He's allowed me to feel part of a community. His friends have become my friends, and yeah, I feel a great sadness leaving. I have Wouter's friend Geert. Oh, he's incredible. There are no words, but I've enjoyed every minute in his company, and he and his wife Elise have made me welcome in their home, and with Elise's cooking, the man couldn't want for much more. And it wouldn't be fair to mention everyone and then forget Elena, who I'm missing already, and who I hope won't feel too bad when I'm not there on Fridays to make the tea and prepare the peas. And then we have, finally but not least of course, Michiel and Tinny, who have also been great. They invited me into their home and made me feel very welcome. But collectively, they've made me feel part of something. So yeah, they're some of the people who have made my stay in the Netherlands perfect, really. I shall miss every single one of them, and will think about them all the time. But I'm going to sign off for now, compose myself a bit and focus on the ride. And what I'll do is I'll talk to you again soon after Zwolle. The sort of big news of the day, the morning, just to put it into context, I was doing some sort of test rides yesterday and going over a pretty sharp speed bump. The trailer disconnected itself from the sort of ball socket joint, and while there was no damage to anything, it was pretty spectacular. It sort of tumbled head over heels and landed a few feet away from where I'd stopped. But mindful of this, not wanting to injure anybody with a running loose trailer, I spent the evening looking at the options for, well, to make sure the trailer didn't disconnect and cause trouble to others. And I came up with this wizard idea of wrapping a bungee cord around the seat tube and then putting the two hook ends on the handles of the trailer, which when it's disconnected you can move it around more easily with. So I bungeed it up, and it's working a treat. The trailer feels secure. There's no issues with stability or hasn't altered or anything. However, the reason the trailer is designed to disconnect from the bike if it goes over a bump or falls on its side is to ensure the cyclist just cycles on regardless. He has to come back for his trailer, of course, but hasn't been pulled down by the trailer. When you bungee cord everything together, as I did, when you misjudge a bend at an intersection and the trailer goes over the curb and tips itself over, the bungee cord ensures that the rider and the bike also lose contact with the ground, and in consequence I was unceremoniously tipped into the verge, which was fine. There was no injury or damage to me or the trailer. Pretty embarrassing. Good morning. I'm in Apeldoorn this morning in a lovely Vrienden op de Fiets place, hosted by Dirk and Aljan. It's ideal. I arrived in good time yesterday, and yeah, the ride down wasn't bad. There was nothing to report really, apart from the dislodging of the trailer very early on in the ride. But after that, it was uneventful, beautiful day, and a reasonable ride down with no adverse conditions. There was a nice bit of sun, so I've got a little bit of tan, as you can see. Last night was a bit disappointing. I had planned to walk into town to get something to eat, but I had to secure accommodation for this evening. So I spent probably best part of 2 hours calling and emailing different people for accommodation through the Vrienden op de Fiets network. And finally I've secured a place for this evening, but it's a little bit out of my way. Again, it's actually a place I've stayed before. It's up in a place called Schaafland, and I think between here and the Hook of Holland it adds a sort of 10-15 kilometers to my journey. So I think I've got something like 90 kilometers today. And then probably, actually I've told you a lie, that's an absolute lie. I've got a very short day today. I've got about 70-80 kilometers, and then tomorrow I've got 90, but yeah, today looks like it's going to be nice, so fingers crossed for another smooth journey, smooth ride. The sort of highlight of the morning, I suppose, is that I'm invited round for coffee to see my host of last year, the great Mr. Owers. He was good enough to host me last year when I was in this town, and he took me on a sort of historic cycle tour of the town, so it was great. So he's invited me for sort of coffee and a sort of second breakfast, if you will. Looking forward to seeing him greatly, so that might slow my ultimate departure from Apeldoorn, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him and looking forward to the ride. There's not a lot to talk about on the way up to Schaafland, so yeah, we'll play it by ear. I'm just leaving Apeldoorn. Had a very agreeable start to my morning, lovely breakfast with the Vrienden op de Fiets. Excuse me. And then it was on to see Mr. Owers, who I met last year, and who was kind enough to show me around Apeldoorn and give me a historic tour, tell me all about the town. But now I'm heading off to a place called Schaafland, and I think with trailer that's probably going to take me 4.5–5 hours. I think yesterday was a bit of a shock actually. I started out with good energy and and confidence, but then did find travelling with the trailer a little bit heavy going really. The trailer's not necessarily packed for around the world, it's packed for around the world plus all of the belongings I'm taking back to the UK that have been living with Wouter for the last 8 months or more. So the trailer's disproportionately heavier than it will be when I finally embark and set off. Luckily the route I've got today is pretty straightforward. I don't think it goes anywhere interesting particularly, but I think it's straightforward and shouldn't get me into too much trouble. But I've said that before, of course, so we'll have to see. Anyway, I'm going to sign off now, and I'll probably sign in again as and when I stop for a break or perhaps lunch. Thought I'd just pop back for a second. As I was saying, 4.5, 5 hours of actual cycling ahead of me, but I thought you might like to see this little stretch, which sort of undulates quite nicely, but what you have missed, of course, is the sort of rise that brought me up a wee hill, hence me being very out of breath. I think if you're going to cycle around the world and you find a hill in Holland that's testing, you might be staring trouble in the face. But anyway, it's good cycling conditions and I'm well breakfasted, so I'll update you later. Hello, it's quite late in the evening now on Thursday. I've ridden from Apeldoorn to Schraafland today. Only 50 miles, but with a few wrong turns and some tricky bits going through some towns and cities. My ride took a little bit over 4 hours, which was, well, it wasn't too bad. I also took quite a long lunch break, which is unusual, but I had to reply to a couple of emails and text messages. But I still managed to get here for 5 o'clock, so yeah, it was a nice day really cycling. A nice weather and nothing really to report on the journey particularly. That said, while the weather was fine today for me cycling, the weather forecast suggests sort of clouds and rain tomorrow, and as the sun has just gone down here, I noticed that the sky was full of dark, foreboding clouds. So fingers crossed for tomorrow, but I expect to be riding the 60 miles down to the Hook of Holland in miserable conditions, I would think. But as I say, I'll keep my fingers crossed. So having arrived here, I had a couple of chores to do. I've written my final postcards from the Netherlands, so they'll go in the post tomorrow. I've done what I seem to do whenever I stop overnight, is I've moved things from one bag to another bag, and I've moved some things from the trailer to the bags, and some things have gone from the bags into the trailer. But I've also just tidied up the tarpaulin temporary cover, which was waterproof anyway, but I just wanted to make sure tomorrow that it was all secure and sort of properly packed down. I mentioned earlier that I'd come a cropper on day one with the trailer, but that was at quite low speed, and although I fell off, it wasn't a problem at all. But today I was moving quite rapidly, and on one of the cycle paths I went over a little bit of ground where tree roots had come through and severely rotted a cycle path. And I hit it at speed, and the trailer, I could feel behind me, was wobbling on its wheels, sort of going boom, 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 and then eventually it sort of took itself down the cycle path and came level with me. But yeah, no damage to the trailer or its contents particularly, but the tarpaulin has taken a bit of a bashing, I have to say. So that was the reason I just checked it over this evening. And I've got it all ready for tomorrow, where we've got the expected rain. From a research and development sort of point of view, the few days with the trailer are proving to be quite informative. It's quite stable, and once it's going along it moves quite nicely, but you do have to be careful of keeping both wheels on the ground at the same time, or being very, very careful if you're going to sort of go over rough terrain really. I don't think there's much else to report. I forgot to mention that one of the calls I had to make at lunchtime earlier was regarding my ferry ticket for tomorrow night. I was looking at the sort of booking to see what time boarding started and what's the latest you could get onto the ferry. And I noticed that the address of the ferry was Harwich. So I sort of checked again and looked a bit closer at my ticket to find, instead of booking a Hook of Holland to Harwich ticket, I'd inadvertently booked a Harwich to Hook of Holland. So I was a bit concerned about that. But yeah, it was easy enough to deal with. I called them up. They said it wasn't uncommon for people to make that mistake, and my ticket has been corrected. But I would have felt a bit of an idiot turning up tomorrow with the wrong ticket. But all's well that ends well. So what I'm going to do now is just going to finish moving some more stuff around in my bags, but more importantly I'm going to take a fairly long shower and then try and get a good night's sleep and be on the road for around 8 o'clock tomorrow. Regardless of the weather, what I'm hoping to do is take about 8 hours of cycling to get to the Hook of Holland. I'd rather be sat bored in the Hook of Holland than stressing and struggling to make the time. So I'm going to try and leave here early in the morning, and then I'm going to try and get to the Hook of Holland early, and then just sit bored out my mind waiting for the boarding. I've just stopped for a cup of tea and some sandwiches before making the final push on to the Hook of Holland. I'm only 90 minutes away, so if I left now I'd be there for sort of 2:30, 2:45, which is too early really. I think the boarding of the ferry is around 8 o'clock, so I'm going to sit here for a wee while and sort of enjoy the calm and peacefulness that is the green space here. Yeah, I'm just sitting here. I've had a nice drink and had some sandwiches made for me, which have been very nice. But sitting here, I have a sort of overwhelming sense of sadness. I can't really put my finger on it. As many of you will know, I've been a fan of this country for a very long time. I was introduced to it 2011, 2012, and I've been a regular visitor since. And there's just something about it that I really like, and the way it functions, the way the people interact, and just something about it that makes me feel sort of very wow, at home, I suppose you'd call it. So I'm conscious that when I get on the ferry and when I leave, that's it. There will be no coming back here for 4 years, I would think, and it feels like a very long time to be away from somewhere that you've grown accustomed to, bonded with, and really feel part of. So while I'm looking forward to the adventures ahead of me, I just cannot shake off this sense of sadness that I've got at the moment, and I expect that will get a little bit worse as the day and evening comes. But yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you. It's taken me by surprise, I have to say. I'm not one much for looking back. I'm more of a looking forward sort of fellow, but yeah, there's just something, and I can't put my finger on it. So I'm going to finish my tea, I'm going to eat my apple that you can't see, and then I'm going to sort of think about it a bit more, and then I'm going to make the push on to the Hook of Holland. Just talk you around the bike a second time. So that's it from the rear. UNHCR logo. It's yeah, all kitted up. It's so you've got in the front you've got accommodation, and in the middle you've got all the sort of cooking equipment, etc., etc. And then what I've got towards the rear is a load of rubbish that I really didn't feel it was very kind to leave in the Netherlands, so I've brought it back. Yeah, tripod on the top of the bar there. I think just general clothes and such like in that one. In the front rucksack, all that is filled with IT and sort of recording equipment, some of which I haven't used and or taken out of its original bag, so won't be going with me much further. Yeah, tri-bars, they've performed quite well actually, the tri-bars. I've enjoyed those. What might be worth showing you, I don't know whether you'll be able to see, but there's a little scuff there, you'll have noticed. And then coming down, sort of there, is a fairly spectacular one. Yeah, there. But you'll see there as well. There we go, that's on top of the sort of bar that holds the trailer to the bike. 3 crashes in 3 days. I should just sort of say that today has been a crash-free day, if you allow me the fact that the bike did actually fall over while I was loading it up, but I can't necessarily blame the trailer for that. Yeah, I think on balance I've learnt quite a lot, which I'll probably do a different video about all of this sort of stuff, but quite a steep learning curve when you cycle with the trailer and a typically Dutch bike, but some of that stuff was known before I ever set foot on the bike. Can you do that? Threw my leg over the crossbar, there you go. But yeah, I'll sign off now and I'll catch you one more time from the Netherlands a little bit later. When I came here last year for the first time on a bike, I got off at the Hook of Holland, and this was the very first fietspad that I recorded on film with the GoPro. So it's fitting then that it'll be the last cycle path that I film in the Netherlands. When I came on this for the first time, going the other way obviously, I thought it was incredible. And as the first experience of cycling in this country, I think it's exceptional. To the British visitor, it's sort of hard to believe really. I mean, as you can see, it's not exactly teeming with cyclists, but the Dutch don't build fietspaden with the view that they should be used all the time. I think the theory is that if you want one, there's one there for you, ready and waiting. And I think it all goes to prove that what the Dutch don't know about cycling really isn't worth knowing. And as I've just said, when you get off at the Hook of Holland, and this is your first exposure to Dutch cycling, it's pretty impressive. We're on the final approach to the Hook of Holland. I don't know whether you've seen this statue on the left here, but very good. Some salty sea dog looking out to sea to look at trouble. Yeah, from Steenwijk. Yeah, but I've been here. Sorry?
How many hours?
2 days. I just did stopped at Hilversum and then come down. Yeah, it was good.
A lot of wind, or was it?
No, for the first time ever, I think I had nothing but normal. It's just terrible. But I've been here since February, so yeah, I've had a great time.
Ah, okay. That's nice to hear. Let me see. This is your cabin key. You have a single cabin on deck 11, the number 634.
Yeah.
364. And this is for breakfast in the morning.
Yeah.
They wake you up at 6:30.
Yeah.
7:30 is disembarkation. You can cycle until the ramp of the ship.
Yeah, then you have to walk, don't you? Yeah.
Because it might be a bit slippery.
Well, I've also got this ridiculous trailer, so yeah.
Okay, some information. The luggage, you can leave it on your bike.
I'm leaving as much as possible on my bike. Yeah.
Yeah, because
just taking this.
During
Yeah. The first time I came, I lugged it all to the cabin, then lugged it all back, and then just thought what an idiot I was.
No, that's not necessary.
Thank you, Val.
Passport control.
Thank you, Val.